Hey, everybody, welcome back to Good Marketing with Stephanie. We're not just another marketing podcast. Together with my guests, we explore and analyze the macro and micro challenges facing marketers and communicators at all levels today. Today, we're diving into what it really takes for marketing and PR leaders to prepare for 2026, because let's be honest, the landscape is shifting much faster than most teams can keep up with. And if you're feeling the pressure between AI, between everything going on with operations and trying to differentiate your brand all at the same time, you are not alone. And fortunately for our listeners and viewers of the podcast, my guest today is someone who thrives right at that intersection. Today, we're going to be joined by Lisa Zwikl. She is the Chief Strategy Officer at SmartAcre, a B2B marketing agency that helps companies modernize their demand engines, strengthen their brand signals, and adopt AI with purpose. Lisa leads the team at SmartAcre and works directly with clients to bring ideas to the table, solving two problems that every marketer is grappling with right now: what customers are experiencing and the technology supporting it. And one of the things I really appreciate about Lisa is the evolution of her career journey. So she actually started in PR, so fellow PR girls here, before she moved into tech, demand operations. And now that foundation that she has shows up in her work every day. So she really brings a storyteller's discipline, a strategist's clarity, and a deep focus on audiences and builders behind every brand. This episode is going to be very exciting because we're going to break down the truth about the road to 2026. We'll give you the roadmap here. It's not just about blindly chasing after the next tool or a trend, but about strengthening your foundation. Let's get into it with Lisa Zwikl of SmartAcre. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped to be here today.
Of course, we're super, super happy to have you. So I would love to kick it off just with a little bit of background on you. So tell us a little bit more about that career journey I just mentioned. Tell us about what you do at SmartAcre, and then we can get right into our conversation today about what comes next for marketers in 2026.
Yeah, sounds good. So I always enjoy talking to you because, like you said, I did start my career in the world of PR right out of college. I graduated from Penn State with a degree in advertising and PR, and then moved to the Washington, D.C. area and started in a PR agency. And I loved that opportunity. It was so challenging, and it really helped me understand the value of being able to clearly articulate what a business does. It was all B2B. So writing technical content, pitching media, and being able to think on my feet on the phone and help them understand why they need to cover my clients. I really learned a ton during that. But one of the challenges that I always experienced was just, how do I measure this? How do I make sure that these impressions translate into results for our clients? And that's when I really started to gain a fascination into the digital realm of everything. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but that was around the time where you were really starting to be able to gain a sense of that data and wrap your mind around it. And social was starting to take over. That landscape was completely changing. So what's been really awesome for me right now is I feel like my career is starting to come very full circle. After the world of PR, I shifted to strategic communications, and I was helping some different government agencies be able to adopt social media safely and in a scalable way, and helping them understand how those tools could be used at a pivotal time. So now here we are with the world of marketing changing, with everything changing related to AI, and we're helping a lot of companies, including our own, figure out, how do we adopt this? How do we strategically start to bring it into the fold? How do we use it in a very effective and safe way? It's made marketing very challenging over the last 2 years, but my point of view on it, it's also made it so much fun and so exciting again, because we're in this place of experimentation and learning what works. How is the customer journey changing? How are we adapting to that? And I love being able to figure that out and support businesses through that change.
Absolutely. And, I want to focus on something that you said that I think is interesting, and that I would love to hear from your perspective. being with SmartAcre and helping to grow and evolve SmartAcre's brand over the years. But the fact that you are also learning right now, right, as all these changes are happening, it's not like marketers, people who work in the marketing space every day wake up and are suddenly just able to use all of the AI tools that are out there or know everything about it, right? Like we're all learning as we go, and we're all learning and trying to help our clients implement those new tools and technologies in the right way, to your point. So something that's really fundamental to all of this is the brand, right? And figuring out how, with these new technologies that are available, how that connects to your core brand, how you can scale up from that core brand. So I would love to hear from you how SmartAcre's brand has evolved and where you see things going now that these new technologies are out there. And I think we could probably take some learnings for that from our audience, because you guys have always had such a great brand. And it's been great to watch you evolve. And so if you could just give us some insight into what that looked like for you, like that journey of once all these AI tools started hitting the market, how did you evolve your brand intentionally to get to where things are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the trends that we started to see, especially in the agency world, well, actually not just in the agency world, I've even had this come up with so many of our clients where there's been this trend of AI powered fill in the blank, AI powered agency, AI powered PR, AI powered creative. So I was at a pretty major marketing conference. This was 2 years ago at this point, and they were very much encouraging agencies to lead with being AI powered and to start having specific AI services on their website. So that gave us a lot to think about, right? Do we become the AI powered marketing, B2B marketing agency? Do we start to carve out AI specific services on our website? And the way that we started to think about this is going back to our brand and the heart of what SmartAcre is. We've been around for 17 years now, and 17 years ago, we were helping businesses build websites. We were helping them leverage technology to be able to explain what they do and to be able to have a great customer experience. Today, we are doing the same exact thing. The story hasn't changed. The messaging hasn't changed. The how we do it has evolved. So when thinking about our own brand and our messaging, we've just started to lean in even more to that storyline. That's always what we've been able to do, and it's what we do very effectively. So instead of having AI, a specific category on our website for AI services, we started to build that into how we talk about everything on our website. So our traditional services, demand generation, creative, revenue operations, we started to talk about how we now use AI as part of that, but we're not just at the AI powered fill in the blank. We're more than that. And that goes back to having a strong differentiator and being able to talk about what makes you unique. And that's always made SmartAcre unique. And that will never change. That will help us ride this wave of evolution. We're always going to help companies adopt technology. And I don't know what the technology might be. Maybe we'll have, our avatars recording this podcast for us. We might not even have to do this, but we'll be able to help with that, because that's how we're thinking about our positioning, our differentiation, and our overall go-to-market strategy.
Some of our listeners in this podcast, you might not be working in a marketing agency, right? You might be in a totally different industry, totally different vertical. But something that, Lisa, that you're saying here that I think is relevant to everyone is this idea that you understand at your core what your brand is, what you do, the problems that you solve. And like you said, that how we do it is the thing that evolves, and you're able to just grow that storytelling over time for SmartAcre to fit what those needs are for your clients. And this is relevant for every industry. It's not just marketing agencies. And something that you had said to me pre-show that I really want to call to attention here is that the brand equals context, right? So can you tell us why it's so important to understand fundamentally what your brand is, what you do, the problems you solve, and what makes you different from your competitors?
Yeah, definitely. So I think sometimes, not to say that marketing and messaging, it's not challenging. I think it is very, very challenging. But I think sometimes the challenge comes from businesses trying to make it overly complex and not just boiling it down to the basics. Very simply, let's be able to articulate consistently what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. And that all is what I mean by context. When we're talking about training AI tools, if you cannot articulate that, it becomes this system of garbage in, garbage out. So one of the early ways that most teams have been adopting AI tools is for content writing. I think it was something that people could very easily gravitate to and start to experiment with and play with and see acceleration pretty quickly. But the takeaway from a lot of people just using AI tools for that has been, well, this is crap. This isn't very good. We shouldn't be using it to write our content. But it boils down to this strong foundation that you need no matter what you're doing, no matter what marketing tactic or communications tactic or PR tactic is, you need that foundation. You need those basics. So I do feel like when thinking about a marketing strategy for next year, those basics have to be a part of it. You have to have a strong brand, because if you do not have that, you're not going to have the context needed to start to train AI models. And I do believe that businesses need to be training AI models in 2026. If they're not, you're falling behind. If you're not using it to at least iterate or be a thought partner in content, you're falling behind. That doesn't mean that you don't need a strong PR team or a strong messaging team or a strong marketing team, but you do need to be able to leverage the speed of these systems so that you can get to where you want to go faster and have more time to iterate on things. So that's what I mean by that context, and brand in many ways does equal context. And I think businesses should be thinking about it that way.
So for our listeners, when you say training an AI model, what do you mean by that? What are the ways that we can train AI models as marketers who have many different priorities going on? How do we do that?
Yep. So I'll use ChatGPT as an example. That's my tool of choice. I'm a ChatGPT fangirl. I've tried them all, but I keep going back to my OG ChatGPT. We have a paid account at SmartAcre. It's one of the things that we implemented over a year ago at this point, just to make sure that our team could scale safely with AI adoption. And there are basic settings that you can implement in your ChatGPT, giving it a framework of how to think, the types of things you want to produce together, giving it some do's and don'ts. So, everyone talks about AI using M dashes and emojis. In your settings, you can very clearly say, don't do that. Please don't do that. The more that you use your ChatGPT, every time that you're giving it something, you're ultimately training it. So that's important to think about, especially if anyone's listening that's also in the agency world and you're working with a variety of clients. One of the things that we do is we have specific project folders within our ChatGPT account that you can train it on specific data. So for example, I can have a folder for SmartAcre marketing, a project for SmartAcre marketing, and I can upload files. So I could upload my brand guidelines, my messaging guidelines, my favorite blog posts, anything that my heart desires. I can put it in that project, and I can even select the option for this project to only remember that information. So it's not pulling in anything else, any other context. It's just being trained off of that in particular. So that's a great way to start to train that AI model. And then you can take it many steps further from there. So I've trained my own personal writing style guide for LinkedIn that I use for, coming up with first draft content. Usually Friday night when my week's over and I'm falling asleep, that's when I get like my 5 best LinkedIn ideas. So I just talk it into ChatGPT and say, remember these for next week. start to draft some first draft ideas for me so they don't fall out of my brain when I fall asleep in 5 minutes when my head hits the pillow. So those are some ways that you can start to train that. And then another step further is to take what you've trained and turn it into an agent that your team could continue to use and iterate off of and build upon. So those are just some examples. Different AI tools have different ways of gaining that context and training the system, but that's a good place to start.
And I love that you called attention to the projects in ChatGPT, because we use that as well in our business practices. And It is a game changer. It's so nice if you need to just very quickly turn something around, or if you're doing some research, looking for ideas, looking for feedback. It's great that it's already contextualized within those projects. So that is a simple thing that any marketer or communicator can do to get the most out of their ChatGPT subscription that they probably have at this point, right? So I really like that you share that practical advice. That's an easy thing to implement, because I think oftentimes we can feel maybe a little overwhelmed by how many different AI tools are out there. Maybe the term AI agent sounds like way too futuristic, not something that I could see myself practically using, right? And we know that that's not actually true, but I think this is just a great, actionable, easy, practical way to get the most out of using these AI tools that we have. And I want to switch gears as well from that sort of internal ecosystem that we have with AI tools to the external AI tools that everybody is using. So I'm talking about AEO. So can you tell us a little bit more about AEO and how, again, going back to the brand, going back to the foundation, why you want to make sure you have those things in place when it comes to the AI engine optimization?
Yeah, great question. So I think few marketers have been shaking in their boots over the last year. We've started to see organic traffic drop across the board. That's pretty consistent. So if you're listening and you're feeling like your organic traffic has dropped and you're freaking out, you're not alone. It's okay. It's going to be okay. Everything's okay. Everything's fine. Even though it feels like it might be on fire, everything's fine. But for AEO, and I've heard it called a few different things: action engine optimization, AI engine optimization, answer engine optimization. The foundation of having strong SEO practices, it's not changing. But in 2026, there is a very real need to optimize differently for a different form of search. More and more people are using LLMs to find information. And even if they're not finding your brand that way right now, the way that we're all searching is becoming very different. Even Google, you can search in AI mode now. You have the AI answers at the top of your SERP. Blue links are getting harder to find. So that's all changing so much. The buyer's journey is changing so much. The foundational practices, for the most part, are still there. So PR, man, it's going to be a year for PR. It's such a great opportunity because these AEO tools, they're not just necessarily looking at your website. They're looking for a variety of links to validate that your brand is what it says it is. They're looking for validation. They're looking for credible sources. So that's always been important for SEO, but it's becoming even more important for AEO and having that information available and consistently saying that this is what this company does, this is how they do it, and having different examples of that. So PR, very important. Being able to be out in different channels, very, very important. And then even thinking about your own content, of how you can create content just for LLMs, is going to be really important. So what I mean by that is, as marketers, one of my favorite tactics has always been, typing in keywords that I think my audience might be searching for to get to a brand, or the problems that they're trying to solve to get to a brand. But now the way that even that's being phrased is very different. So we have to start to create content that answers a different form of questions versus just keywords that's been in the past. And that gives a very clear action that's different than what's been available in the past. So no one's looking for like a long ebook anymore, because you can get a summary in a very different way. So thinking about the type of asset that you need for someone to be able to take action to find an answer, not just to get information, because the information is being gotten in an entirely different way than it has been before.
So could you give us an example of that? Like what, and it could be a real example, it could be a theoretical example, but can you just give us a scenario for our audience and for me as well, because I'm curious too. But how can we do something like that? How can we make the content that we're putting out there more sticky so that it's not just, okay, hey, quick glance on the, Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever, and I'm moving on to the next thing? How do we get that content to stick?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've been really focused on is the capturing the conversion on a website. So again, foundational marketing, good best practice that isn't necessarily changing. It's just the type of conversion before. So in the past, you might ask someone for an email address to download an ebook. Great. Inbound marketing. Yay. Everyone loved that 4 years ago. Now, not anymore. So ungating that long form content, making it available, using it again, right? It doesn't mean that it's not good content anymore, but if you have a long how-to asset that no one really wants to read, think about, how can I turn this into like an FAQ section on my website? Or how can I make this a YouTube video? Or how can I take this content and have someone answer it in Reddit threads for any of these questions that are coming up and repurpose it on an entirely different channel? So that's a way to get it into the LLMs by just like continuing to amplify that content that you have as much as possible, tailoring it for the channels, amplifying it as quickly as you can. And you can use AI to do that now. So no excuses, just get it done. And then thinking about, okay, now how are we changing that conversion point on our website? Instead of an ebook, let's have an experience. Maybe it's a chatbot where someone comes and they just want to be able to talk to someone and potentially book a meeting. Or maybe it's a interactive calculator asset where they can establish clear ROI or a case for presenting that to their boss before they book a demo. So just thinking about what that asset is that's really action oriented moves them further down their customer journey, but knowing that they're coming to your website way more educated than they've ever been in the past.
I love that. That's such a brilliant point. And, I think it's hard sometimes. Well, change is hard in general, right? Like change is never easy. And for so many years, the conversions that mattered were get the email address, get the demo booked, right? And those things still matter. But to your point, there's so many other ways to engage users now that we have to be thinking differently and we have to change our approach. And if someone's listening to this and they're working on their strategy for 2026, or maybe new things they want to experiment with or try, what would your key takeaway be for them on just responding to these changes and trends in technology and in marketing in general? I know before the show, we talked about like speed and creativity being the thing that's really going to set teams apart. So how can they do that? Where should they start?
The first thing, even before that, is getting very clear on goals, not just metrics, but what is the end goal? Because traditionally as marketers, we're measured on things like MQLs, or even before that, impressions, and, looking through that whole conversion funnel. And those KPIs are going to change. I was listening to a HubSpot podcast a few weeks ago, specifically on AEO. It's the Marketing Against the Grain podcast. I highly recommend it for anyone interested in AI and how to bring a lot of these ideas to life. But they were giving some very clear metrics, and I don't have them at my fingertips, but even though conversions are going down, the quality of things like demos booked when they're coming from LLMs is going up. So there is going to be a shift in KPIs. And I think that that's something that any good marketing leader has to start communicating. Otherwise, you're going to be trying to hit a metric or level of performance that your marketing strategy is not aligned to. Like, those are not the tactics that you need to be focused on, and those are not the goals that you need to hit anymore. So the conversation needs to start there. And then I always like to, with our teams, do a very, very easy exercise called start, stop, continue. It's how we do a lot of our strategic planning, which is crazy because it feels so not strategic because it's so easy. But we like to think about what are the patterns that are really working. Those are the things that we want to continue. What are the things that we want to start doing? Because every new year is a good opportunity to try something different, to do something innovative. But then with that, there's things that you just have to stop doing because you don't have time to do everything. You have to be selective. Prioritization is a superpower. So a simple start, stop, continue. I would think in that start category of the big, crazy idea, the thing that you've always wanted to do and it was too expensive, it was too hard. Do that, do it fast, learn from it, ship it, get it done, because I feel like there's some grace in things right now, right? Like a lot of brands have put out fully AI produced videos, and some of them are so funny and kind of bad, but it shows that their brand is innovative and doing something different. So if that's part of how you're differentiating yourself, lean into that. Especially as an agency, that's something I'm not afraid to put out something that's not perfectly polished because I want our clients to see they're pushing the envelope. They're trying something different. Maybe if they try it first, they'll do it a little bit better when they do it for us. So go back to knowing your brand, knowing your audience, and being okay to try something that's a little bit different, or at least take something that already exists, that context, that content that's worked in the past, and use AI to quickly iterate on it so you can go back to that tailoring it and amplifying it.
Absolutely. And I think there's such an opportunity here with AI. Like, yes, I'm going to say something positive about AI because I'm experiencing this myself as an agency owner, as, you know, a PR person, communicator, marketer, whatever. But it really makes it possible to do so much more with less and for years and years. And I'm not saying it's good that we're always being asked to do more with less. Like, you know, that's not an ideal situation, but it's great to have this tool that opens up so many different doorways to creative and experimental marketing tactics, right? Like things, to your point, that maybe you've always wanted to try, but were never able to. It makes it so much easier to be more of an omni-channel marketer, right? Because if you say, hey, well, you know, I'm really good at writing content, but I'm maybe not as good at like creative, or I'm not as good at like video production. Well, you can use AI tools to help you with that. And I'm not saying that that should be a replacement for creative work, because it's not, but it doesn't always have to be this perfect, polished, and very expensive thing that we're shipping, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
You can take this nice, or I should say, and this is something, you know, I work with content agencies, and I collaborate with content agencies in different ways. But you know, the kind of investment they get will be in a really, really good piece of long form content that had a lot of research and thought leadership behind it. It's this very multi-dimensional piece of long form tentpole content that they are creating. And then they just branch off in every other direction that you can think of with that big piece of content. So, and you made this point earlier, right? If you already have that existing content, it's a great piece to repurpose. It's a great asset to repurpose in all these different ways. And so the point I'm trying to make with my little spiel here is that if you have that investment in that fundamental piece of thought leadership, long form content, whatever it is, AI makes it possible to do so much more with less. You don't have to be reinventing the wheel every single time that you're trying to do something. And I've posted about this before on my LinkedIn. Sorry to be monopolizing the conversation here, but
no, I love it. It's the whole point of a podcast. You get to hear all different voices. It's awesome.
I know, but you're the guest. You're the guest. But I've posted about this on LinkedIn before, but I think, and this is another point of change that I think is difficult for marketers, but that it's always on to the next thing. Like, okay, here's the next launch. Here's the next deadline. We get to that. We have our assets. Boom, go. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. And then we just kind of forget about everything that we did before. And I'm not saying that launches should go away, or that, you know, we're not going to be doing these kind of timely campaigns anymore. Like we are, but it's thinking about how we can recycle and reuse and repurpose that content, and the way that AI makes it possible to do that across so many different content formats and channels now. So really, there is a big opportunity here for marketers with AI, just with that. And I hope to see more of that sort of positive attitude about AI going into 2026. I just think it's a hard it's hard change to make, right? But we have to be adaptable. We have to be agile. We have to be able to change with the times, right? So I would love to hear from you, for looking ahead to 2026. Tell me your top prediction. What do you think is going to be the game changer in marketing next year?
Ooh, that's such a hard question. I think we're going to see a shift of businesses who've embraced AI and who haven't, and there's going to start to be a split in terms of who's winning and who's not. I think that the big enterprise businesses that tend to dominate and own markets, I think that if they're not thinking ahead and adopting new tools, there's going to be an opportunity for smaller and mid-sized businesses to catch up because LLMs don't really care about that. There's this also is noted in that HubSpot podcast. I'll make sure that you can link to it. But there was data on how the LLMs aren't necessarily favoring some of the bigger pieces of data like Google has in the past. So I think that that's definitely going to be a shift. We're likely going to see advertising in platforms like ChatGPT. So that's going to be wild and like a whole different thing that we have to figure out and prepare for. So that's going to be crazy. And I think that good marketing is going to be more important than ever. So those foundations, those best practices, those key things that no one can be neglecting, either companies are going to start accelerating a bunch of crap, or they're going to start to accelerate the things that that they're doing really, really well, and you're going to see it and they're going to start winning. So investing in that foundation, being able to adopt new tools very quickly, and being able to pay attention to how the buyer's journey is changing. If you can focus on those things and know that it's okay not to have all the answers, but at least be prepared to navigate and plan for the unplanned, I think those are the areas that marketers and businesses, I think that that's what's going to set you up to win.
Excellent answer. And let's set a little reminder for us in the calendar to get together at this time next year and see how things actually unfolded in 2026. Do a little recap there, and then we'll be talking about 2027, which is
that's crazy. I would love to do that because who the heck knows? It actually is going to be crazy. And I don't know. I love it. It's so much fun, but I have never been more driven to learn as a marketer than right now. I can't sleep at night. I just want to be experimenting and prompting and reading all the great content that I find on LinkedIn. It's just such an exciting time to try to just embrace the change. So I think that's really important. It is hard. You're right. Change is never easy, but it's also exciting, and it allows us to do some really cool stuff that we haven't been able to do before. So why the heck not?
Yep, totally agree. We need a mindset shift overall, just on the role. And again, just because it was so new, I think that's why it has felt, it feels scary at times, or like there's resistance to it because it is such a new thing. And I think we all know that it can't replace people. And I mean, it's not in a place where if you're just like, hey, you know what? And I talked about this on my last episode of this podcast with Pat Schober, but if somebody wants to replace their entire marketing team with AI, it's like Mel Robbins, let them theory. Okay, go ahead, let them. Not sure that's going to work out so well for them. AI really is a great tool. It's a great supplement. It's a great way to augment what we can do and scale into new channels, new content formats, things that we couldn't maybe do before with the resources we had. That's where the gold mine is with AI, in my opinion, and in my experience so far in practice. So really great conversation, Lisa. Really enjoyed this. I do have another, big hardball question for you. With it being this time of year that it is, we're both wearing red sweaters here. It's December. What is your favorite holiday tradition?
Ooh, probably going and getting our Christmas tree. I have two little kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old, two little boys. And I've always been obsessed with our Christmas tree. It's kind of a thing in our house. The first year that we moved here, we didn't have any furniture. We moved from the DC area. So we moved from a very small space to a bigger space. So we got this giant Christmas tree. Like I'm talking 13 feet tall by uh probably 7 feet wide. It was so huge. So now we have this tradition where we get like an obnoxiously large Christmas tree. We go, we like cut it down, and it's just always a scene. It's always a scene. One year my mom had on a football helmet as my parents were like trying to help us get the tree up. Another year we cut the like the twine off of it, and the branches are just like whoosh, whoosh. So I'm very excited. We might brave the 10-degree weather this weekend to go get our giant Christmas tree. And I cannot wait to see what we pick. It's always unique, it's different, and there's always a memory and a story behind it.
Oh my God.
What about you? What's your favorite tradition?
Oh gosh. I mean, well, I'm with you on the Christmas tree thing. So we actually just moved to Richmond, Virginia a few months ago. We're in our first home, and we were like, we have to get a real Christmas tree. So we went out and did that, and it was so much fun picking it out and decorating it, and we're loving it. I think we're still establishing our holiday traditions here, but one thing, just because, we're in a new place and all that, but I will say something I love is when I go to my fiance's family's Christmas, we do those little like holiday crackers. I guess anybody that lives in like the UK that listens to this, you'll know what I mean. But if you are American and you don't know what a holiday cracker is, it's those little, they're like little twisty things. They're in Harry Potter. I know they do it at some point in Harry Potter, but you pull them apart at both ends and they sort of pop, and little like a puzzle will come out and a little paper crown and some fun little joke paper or something like that. And I love doing that. I think it's so fun. And I know that's not really like a big maybe tradition per se, but it's something I look forward to every year for sure.
That.
So
Awesome.
yeah. I love the holidays. So yeah, I hope that you have a wonderful holiday season. And again, really appreciate you coming on the show. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you online?
Yep. So you can check out our website, getsmartacre.com, or you can follow me on LinkedIn, Lisa Zwikl. Check me out there. I do try to share thoughts and randomness as frequently as possible. And I love to connect with other great marketers and content strategists, PR powerhouses, all that on LinkedIn. So feel free to hit me up and let me know if you have any questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lisa. Make sure you go ahead and follow her on LinkedIn. Check out SmartAcre. They're great. And yeah, thank you all for listening. Until next time, this has been Good Marketing with Stephanie.